Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of City Skylines from the city of Altengrad. We have completed one of the most important connections over the river, the new bridge, and today we will continue with another bridge, the old one, the one that goes to that little piece of land just before the two rivers meet, which is exactly the place we will focus on today. So the old bridge is going to be divided in two parts, as you can see. Obviously, one half is going to go to that land in the middle, and the second half is just going to continue to the opposite side of the second river. I'm going to do the bridges exactly the same, so we're going to use the exactly same structure of the bridge and even the road and all that. You could have seen that I was just copy-pasting it from the opposite side, but as I said, we are not really going to focus on the bridge itself because, it's rather easy and, it's done already. So I really wanted to build something kind of nice exactly on this tip of this little peninsula, maybe we can call it, just before the confluence of the two rivers. So I took some inspiration from real life, from various kinds of places. I think the closest where some similar structure is located is Koblenz in Germany. I think you guys suggested that a long time ago that I should probably do something like that. There were many suggestions for this place. For example, some sort of like a fort with old fortifications, maybe. I kind of did some remnants of old fortifications in this place as well, like medieval ones, but we are going to get there later. So at first, I'm going to do this place. So right now, it was just like a trial and error with certain keys and retaining walls, as you can see, just trying out various things, even with the stairs and all that. And I finally decided that I'm just going to do this place on two levels. So the first level, which is going to be the same as the road on the bridge, is basically going to be where all the buildings are going to be and all the important stuff. And then there are going to be stairs and connections down to the second level, which is going to be closer to the river. And that's basically going to be without buildings, just some, paths to really just go through this area. There's going to be a lot of decorations, some trees, and just places where people can go. I'm thinking that this place that I'm building right here is, again, something not exactly that old. Might have been built, just a couple of decades ago, maybe a century ago, something like that. Or maybe it's like very, very recent. It definitely wasn't here in medieval ages in Altengrad. I was thinking that in medieval ages, this place might have actually been some sort of like a fortified area. Basically a gate into the city, so lots of walls, maybe some military buildings, barracks maybe even, something like that. But it changed because the city walls, and I'm talking about the really old city walls, so the medieval walls, were no longer needed a long time ago, and obviously this place just needed to have some reworks. So it received some more recently constructed buildings, some nice buildings as well. For example, this palace building right in the corner there. And later I'm going to add just a couple of more. That small building right there, I'm actually going to get rid of. That's not going to be there. So this is what I was thinking of adding to this place. Some sort of a remnant, like a little note that there might have been some sort of city walls right in this place. So I decided to add that building, which it's actually like a set of buildings in one building, let's say, with that gate tower in the middle. It's obviously not used as a gate today, but the tower remained and people just built buildings all around it because the walls around the tower were no longer there. Even though I am going to later build just some short segment of the wall which was just not destroyed. I guess it was not needed to destroy it, just to kind of remind us that the city walls might have been right here, or maybe not the entire city walls, but just the segment of the walls, obviously, in this part of land. So I'm actually adding a third level. I completely forgot that I was doing on this side of the entire place. I was doing like a third level as well, which is going to be basically where these buildings are going to be. Well, now that I think of it, I did the exact same thing on the opposite side as well. So never mind. Actually, 3 levels are going to be here. This one is going to be kind of in the middle between the top and the bottom one. And it's just going to act as an access basically to those buildings that are slightly lower than this top layer. I'm not really doing like a huge area today. I'm mostly concentrating on just really putting down the basic stuff in here, and then I'm going to detail a lot just all around this place, right? So some of these buildings are just forming like the necessary blocks around the river, but later as we progress further from this confluence of the rivers, we are going to probably add some more lower density stuff, because I don't think that this is going to be like a city center in here, or just part of the city center, but it's definitely more on the edges of it. So this place should probably see some lower density structures as we progress further away. But that's not really going to be the focus of like next episodes, because in the next episodes, I'm going to go across the river into that place that we have been doing in the past 2 episodes, actually. And I'm going to actually join the places that we have been doing to this one that we do today. So building some sort of a waterfront on the opposite side of the river, pretty much from the opposite, on the opposite side of the castle, right? So I'm going to build some larger buildings there on the waterfront. I've been talking about that in the previous episode as well, so that's definitely planned. I even somewhat started doing that already, so hopefully it's going to look nice, and hopefully it's just going to fit this entire place. One thing that I also wanted to mention, even though it's not really going to be explained fully, I suppose, is that this place is definitely going to see some changes again as we progress in time. So it's probably not super obvious from the time lapse, but I'm already kind of calculating and measuring all these places, how they could possibly change with some things. Again, I don't really want to spoil it too much, but I'm definitely planning on changing some of these places as we progress in time. So this place in general is just going to be having different kinds of buildings. You could have seen that I placed mostly those Renaissance and Baroque buildings right towards those old bridges, or the one bridge, I suppose, divided in half. And as we went forward with past the what remains of the walls, I suppose, we started adding some of the most recently constructed buildings. So pretty much the same buildings that I was placing, like in the previous episode as well, in that modern part of the city. And like I said, we are probably going to do some low density stuff in the same style as we progress from this place. But that's not really important right now. So this is where the detailing is going to be. So I'm definitely needing some sort of end for this bridge. I decided that for this one, by the way, I don't want to do this place completely symmetrical. I decided to do that asymmetrically because it's just going to look better, in my opinion. And I also built that road for the trams. Oh yeah, by the way, I need to mention the trams. Must not forget about it. I also did the road that goes for the trams towards this street that continues on the bridge. I did asymmetrically as well, so that it only connects to, like, it has only one track going into that direction over the water. It doesn't turn back into the old town, right? It's just like a non-100% intersection, because it kind of felt fine doing that, because there's definitely not going to be any lines just turning back into the downtown, because they would be mostly like circling back, which doesn't really make sense. So this just felt better, and doing this entire place asymmetrically just also felt kind of all right. But now the trams. I need to mention the trams because some of you probably didn't see the episode where we built the old bridge for the first time. So I need to mention that there are no power cables on these on the bridge, on the first and the second half. There are the power cables for that street that connects to that street, but then they are ending suddenly, and there are no cables on the bridges themselves. That is actually intentional, because like I was explaining with that original video for this bridge is obviously kind of based on the Charles Bridge, even though, this place where it just splits in half is obviously not there in real life. That's just a different story. But the bridge itself was kind of based on the Charles Bridge, and I was actually digging into some like historical information about it, and there were trams on the Charles Bridge a long time ago. And they also experimented with the electric trams. They experimented with power brought by the rails themselves, so like positive on one rail and negative on one rail with no cables. Obviously, the reason for that was because the bridge was kind of nice. It was already a historical landmark at the beginning of the 20th century, so they didn't exactly want to ruin it by adding some of those ugly poles for the cables. So they decided to just try and experiment with the power from the rails themselves, which was kind of dangerous, even though there were some like measures to make it safer, basically just putting power to the rails only if there was the tram physically present on top of it and all that, all those kinds of things. The point is that it was based, or what I'm doing in here is based in real life. It's not just complete nonsense. Now, in real life, it was kind of unreliable concept. It was only operating for a couple of years, and then they got rid of it because it was just it was kind of useless because it was breaking down all the time. In Altengrad, we are going to have it for quite a longer time, I suppose, because I think I would like to get rid of the trams from this bridge, I suppose after the Second World War. I just don't want to do any kinds of changes to the bridge before that, because after the Second World War there's going to be more significant changes to like more parts of the city. So that's probably going to be the time when we are going to do changes even in this place. But like I said, I just wanted to explain that this is actually based on like a real life reference. So, you know, don't hate me for not putting the power cables on the bridges. All right. So that's almost it with the detailing. While I was talking about this, I almost did the entire detailing on that plaza area in here. As you could have seen, I just added those like slightly rounded networks for that decorative cobblestone. I added also the fountain, which kind of fits this place very nicely. Also the planters and all that. Now I'm doing the surfaces. Again, that's kind of important. In here, I'm using a slightly different technique for putting the cobblestone underneath the tracks on the road, because we obviously have the Move It, new version of Move It, and procedural objects, new version of procedural objects as well. And they now work together so that I can use Move It to manipulate procedural objects, and it's much easier to do that. I can basically just use, for example, the prop line tool to just paint the decals, then select them with Move It, just move them however I need, and then convert them into procedural objects, all of them at once using Move It, which is kind of convenient. And then I obviously have to just one by one manipulate it using procedural objects themselves, which is kind of a long process, but it's definitely faster than just one by one aligning the decals together so that the cobblestones match just with the procedural objects mod, because that's not exactly all that easy. So this is much more convenient and kind of nice to work with. I'm also doing lots of these connections between the different levels, as you can see, putting a lot of these like ploppable surfaces in here to just cover the edges, and putting the stairs everywhere we can, between the buildings, for example, in this little alley, and just everywhere, so that the connections are there so that people can use it. Later, towards the end of this video, I'm obviously going to put the pedestrian paths through these stairs to connect all these places. And what's really surprising is that people are using these paths quite a lot. If you remember, I was doing this on the live stream, and I was super happy that people were using all the stairs and just walking around the place kind of freely, which was really satisfying. I think I was talking about it in the channel update video, how I really like it when I just build something in the game and people are using that. Obviously, I have to make them use it, so putting some either park people's generators or some landmarks, you know, tourist attractions or whatever. But that doesn't matter, obviously. The point is that they're just using it. They're just walking around there. So what I built is actually used by citizens of the city. So that's cool. That's nice. This street, for example, that I'm decorating right here, I was thinking that because, you know, you have those old buildings on one side, that's where the stairs are, and modern buildings on the other. And I was intentionally doing that because I was thinking that this street actually had the walls going through it. So it kind of made sense that maybe I'm going to put the old buildings here and the new buildings on the opposite side. I was not really talking about the wall at all, but we're actually going to see it in a couple of more shots, so I'm going to wait with that. Anyway, so those were the stairs. Just some more detailing with these waterfronts, I guess. Just some of these railings in here. As you can see, I used just these small stairs over here. I didn't really want to bother too much with those big stairs anymore. And again, there is that middle level that's just basically serving all these buildings in here, even though these buildings actually don't have a road access at this point, but there's probably going to be some sort of connection on that piece of wall there, so hopefully that's going to work. Anyway, we are back with that main area, the main plaza. Should I call this the plaza, I suppose? I don't know. Park, plaza, waterfront. I'm not exactly sure what this place is called. But anyway, we are going to just finish the detailing on it. So putting a lot of benches all around this place. And obviously later some trees and all that. There was a tiny bit of a problem with this place that you could have seen on the live stream. I was kind of struggling with that. It's not all that super visible in the time lapse, but it's kind of logical because I'm not using the tree snapping mod because I have to use the unlimited trees mod, and these two are incompatible, so I have to choose one or the other. And obviously just it's going to be a bit inconvenient that I don't have one or the other. Now I don't have the tree snapping mod, which means I cannot move trees up with move it. They always need to be sitting on the surface, and obviously when you have the keys, the surface underneath them is dropping, right? So putting some trees on the keys or closer to the keys is kind of impossible because they are going to be slightly sunken into the terrain. So especially lower or very short flowers or bushes are almost going to disappear in the planters. So that was the reason why I had to cut some of those planters on the top level. And fortunately on this lower level, it was kind of fine. I was able to just put everything because the terrain started dropping down very steeply, pretty much right underneath the benches. So the planters were fine and I could place everything how I wanted it there. So that was fine, but it was just a bit of a problem on the upper level. So doing just some more detailing, for example, with this courtyard for this palace building, there was already that hedgerow. Just marking this courtyard, just dividing it from the street, and I just added this grass in here with some of these paths and some of the detailing like this. And are we now going to return to that wall area? No, not yet. We are going to just place some lamp posts because you guys really wanted to see some night shots of the city, so I decided to finally work on these lights because I'm not really doing that. Even in the previous episode, I think I did not add any lamps on that waterfront. So it's definitely going to be much more convenient for me to just add these lights just when I finish these projects and not later, because that's just going to take a long time and it's just not going to be, you know, all that good. But anyway, now we are returning to the street that's pretty much going right next to that remnant of the old wall, so we can probably talk a bit more about it. I just placed some of these trees in there because that street is kind of wide. I have some plans with this street. Again, don't really want to spoil it, but that's pretty much the reasoning why I made it this wide. And then on this corner, I just decided to build some sort of a marketplace and just decorate it with the stands and tents and all that, some tables. But the wall itself, as you could have seen, I also used procedural objects on some of these buildings so that they are going to exactly fit the wall. I was thinking that the wall, again, might see some changes in the future together with these buildings, of course. That's pretty much why I'm not really putting like super nice detailing in this area, because it's not exactly going to be, you know, lasting for a long time. So I'm just doing these like garbage courtyards or whatever, just places where there might have been some building, maybe it got destroyed or something, not exactly sure. Now, this is the most important part that I was talking about. We need to just put all the paths through this place and make sure that people are going to be able to walk all around it. So just everywhere I can, I'm putting these paths, just connecting absolutely everything together so that people have as many opportunities to walk around. What's kind of nice about City Skylines, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it feels like the movement for people on these paths is kind of randomized, like they are mostly just walking on really random paths, if it's, at least somewhat on the path that they want to take or on the way towards their destination. But they are using pretty much all the paths, even the one that goes all around the tip of that plaza, waterfront place, whatever. So that's kind of nice. That's really nice that people are using this place. But anyway, guys, this is the end for today's episode. So I'm gonna leave it with the commentary, and we are just going to see some cinematics, all right? So guys, thank you for watching today's episode of Altengrad. I hope you liked it. If you did, then you can always put a thumbs up underneath the video, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And also, if you want to directly support the channel, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. Enjoy the cinematics, take care, and goodbye.